Hello, everyone. I'm Jason Ward. With me is Rob, and today we're going to be talking about Indiana Jones 5 and Star Wars The Bad Batch.
It's not about spaceships. It's not about spaceships. It's not about spaceships. It's not about spaceships.
Hey, everybody. How's it going? So, pretty big news yesterday when we were doing the show that it broke that Antonio Banderas was going to be in Indiana Jones. And at that point, it was just the trades showing up and saying it. And so you're like, okay. When the trades say it, it's usually true. Usually it's an agent or whoever the rep of the actor is really giving it to the trades because they want to, boost their client. And so it's almost always true unless it's you hear the word "eyed" or rumored. That means that they didn't get the job, and the rep is trying to get them in the trades linked to a big project. That way, somebody else scoops them up. Like, oh, Antonio Banderas, who's a huge actor, so it's a bad example, but might be in Indiana Jones. We better get him for Transformers. Like, that's just like the robotic kind of mindset that's there, and why they do that. So it broke yesterday. It seemed pretty true. He's a big actor. That's a hard one to mess up on somebody that big. And then later on, as the day went on, I'm going to see if I'm able to share my screen without messing this up right now. I will probably mess it up, but I don't care. I do what I want. So right here, you can see Frank Marshall confirmed it at about 2:37, right before the show ended yesterday. So he scooped their own stuff. And then Antonio showed up, and Antonio was like, "It's an honor to join on the screen to one of the most charismatic heroes in the history of cinema with Harrison Ford, Steven Spielberg, James Mangold, and the rest of the fabulous Indiana Jones team." So there you have it. It's real. So, yeah.
Well, I went and looked up to see what he's done recently in live action because I've only seen him or heard him in the Puss in Boots films as of late. Turns out two things. One, it's got a new Puss in Boots movie coming. So
everyone, make sure you check out Puss in Boots. Okay, that would be pussinboots.com.
All right. And two, he's also in the Uncharted film coming out next year. So in the same year.
So what? Uncharted. Pussinboots.com. Make sure you check it out. Antonio is going to give a riveting performance. If you want to know how he's going to perform in Indiana Jones, don't bother watching Uncharted. It won't tell you. Watch Puss in Boots.
Very cool.
No. Sorry, you make an excellent. Very cool. No, that is an excellent year for Banderas and adventure films. I mean,
legit. I mean, and Uncharted is the modern take on Indiana Jones. I mean, that's not even like something Amy Hennig or them ever, pretended to not exist. So it is. Yeah. I mean, for all I know, because Variety reported that, and they said they had no specific role. So I mean, he could just be like, "Hey, Puss in Boots," like in Uncharted, like in a
Puss in Boots. I find you beautiful. And then Puss in Boots falls in love with. Wait, is he the voice of Puss in Boots?
Yeah, he's the Puss in Boots.
He's the puss. He's the puss in the boots.
It's got the little booties.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
They're adorable films, man. They don't win Oscars, but you can put them in and be like, one, they're gorgeous. Nathan Fowkes and the cats at DreamWorks did the first three, and the art direction wise, the lighting is phenomenal.
Wait, who makes it?
But the story,
it's DreamWorks?
DreamWorks did, yeah. It's a DreamWorks property. I don't know how that's working out now, like the state of DreamWorks animation, because a lot of those people have left since the whole Katzenberg's gotten. Is he solo now, or did he sold it to Nickelodeon or Paramount? I'm unfamiliar. Yeah, I should have done that research before the show. I didn't know I was gonna be quizzed on Puss in Boots.
You know what? You know what? I'm taking you out of the chat right now. He's on a timeout for not doing that. Okay, he's back. You're back.
Face
You're
the
back.
Corner.
No, I mean, honestly, 95% of anything that we say on this show that isn't Star Wars, people are like checking their watch, like, when are they talking about Star Wars? When are they talking about the spacemen? So it doesn't matter anyway. Here's Puss in Boots for you. This is our new Puss in Boots show. But yeah. Antonio Banderas, I feel like he hasn't been super overexposed recently, and maybe he's gonna go for a big year, like you're saying, he's gonna be in Uncharted. But he's a huge actor, and so in a way, like you almost want like in Last Crusade, you have like Julian Glover is sort of like the role that I imagine Banderas is going to be in, whether he's good or he's bad. But I imagine it's something of that size. That's just a guess. I don't think like
He has a personality that could match Harrison Ford on screen, though.
Yeah,
I mean, you can't. Like I know we were talking about, like a solid character, and that's fair because Jonathan Rhys-Davies is a tremendous actor.
Yeah.
But Banderas, if he were to play an antagonist, could hold his own against Ford on camera.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, the guy has star power, as they say, star presence. With where he's
je ne sais quoi.
Yeah, I would imagine he's a character who is introduced midway second act. If not that they film movies in order.
I'm writing that down. Midway second act. Making Star Wars. You got it wrong.
I got a spreadsheet, Twitter. I got a spreadsheet.
Fourth way through the fifth act. It's 5 acts. You didn't even get the acts right.
What a moron! Just a pure out moron. No, I was gonna say, was that it? Like I don't think that I feel like they were filming the first 20 minutes on its own. It does seem like that's what they did, because that's like a mini movie onto itself, and it's the opening. And so I think that they filmed that, and then after that they probably started kind of getting into the meat of the film. And how long it's been into production, where it's already had like about a month or almost 2 months worth of shooting now. I think I could be wrong about that, but I think it's almost 2 months worth of shooting. And he's coming in, and I don't know how many months they're supposed to film on this movie. And with the state of the world, it's hard to tell what any of that means, unlike in the past where it was a little bit easier. But I would say he's probably going to be like second act when they get. It's probably gonna go like opening of the film, Nazi Germany.
Okay, hold on, write it down. No,
yeah, second. Then we get to present day Indy, where he gets wrapped into the adventure, and then he's going to end up at the first exotic location.
Inciting incident.
Yes. And then once we get there, that's probably when he's like, I have to go find my friend Antonio Banderas. You might know him as Puss in Boots.
And it's literally Save the Cat.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so it turns out that this movie is that Nazi Germany was housing a secret a boot that would allow its wearer to walk on water and jump very high, and only one puss could be in it at a time, and that was Antonio Banderas, who knows its location.
And that's how they got that Nike deal.
There you go.
Oh no, sorry, my bad. Puma deal. Of course.
So yeah, but I was cracking up when like yesterday when we stopped the show around 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and and then I like look on Twitter, and first thing I see is La Doctor Frank Marshall going, "Hey everybody, Antonio's in the movie. Look, Deadline knows, or Variety knows, or whoever it was."
He was waiting for you to stop the show, though, Jason. You know,
yeah.
They watch. They're watching. They're always watching the Eye of Marshall and Kennedy. You know,
he cracks me up. Like one time, a fake Kathleen Kennedy account followed me, and then like all the Fandom Menace dudes were like, "Well, you're a plant. We know it." And then I'm like, "Oh, really? Well, that worked out for them." That said, they're like, Kathleen Kennedy follows you. And then I'm like, no, she doesn't. And I was like, kind of like freaked out by it. I'm like, why would Kathleen Kennedy be following me? And I'm like, and then, well, Frank Marshall follows that account. And like to this day, I laugh at the two possibilities. The first possibility is Frank Marshall was following an account that's imitating his wife so he could report it as soon as it did something inappropriate. The other thing is that he just literally doesn't know what he's doing on the internet because he's of that generation, and he's like, "Oh, I'm following my wife on."
Oh no, I'm here at Skywalker Ranch. We're plants. That's what we've been discovered.
Dude, what are you doing?
No. Okay, hold on. Oh my gosh.
Dude, change. John Null, change the background now. ILM real-time renders, 5G technology.
All right.
Thank God. Dude, if anybody caught that, we are busted.
We'll fix it in post.
And I want to say hello to everyone in the chat. And I want to thank all of the channel members and all of the people supporting the show on Patreon, where you can get not unique, but exclusive audio. And if you want to support the show, you could support it on YouTube if that's easier for you via Google, or you could support it on Patreon if that's where you like to support content creators. So, and thank you to everyone who does. And if you can't, it's totally cool. I just down to have some Star Wars buds in the chat, and that's always nice. So, that said, I am super pumped about dude, Indy, come on. Demonetized now.
It's Casual Friday. Don't you know? Just let your whip out, bro.
Just, you gotta let the whip dangle sometimes.
Still got it.
Yeah. Man. Unfortunately, now I know what Harrison Ford looks like when he's backed up.
When he's in full Dykstra.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
So yeah. On the Indy news, don't want to make yesterday's show a clone of today's, so to speak. Said that backwards, but whatever.
Oh.
Yoda. I'm gonna Yoda it. So we won't go back into it too much. Watch yesterday's show if you want to hear our on the spot thoughts about the breaking news of Banderas. That said, there was a new Bad Batch last night, and I always want Rob to be honest here about this stuff. Rob isn't I don't think a huge animation fan, right?
Okay,
Would you say?
No, hold on. I'm
okay. Animation fan.
Animation, okay,
animation fan sound. That's the one way to put it. So what I mean to say is that Rob hates cartoons and he thinks that they're for children. And anybody who watches them and anybody who doodles should really just like grow up.
Which is why they're all made by kids. We know this. No adults actually make this stuff, right? It's all just children.
It's all just kids doodling, right?
Yeah, it's how they just draw with an etch a sketch, like. Yeah. So my history is like I was just burnt out of Star Wars when the Clone Wars hit, right? The cartoon. And matter of fact, my ex ended up marrying a guy at Nickelodeon who was one of the head writers. He was friends with Dave Filoni. And I was so friendly with my ex, and she was like, dude, we're going to the premiere of this animated Clone Wars movie. His friend's directing Dave. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's amazing. Tell me how it went. And they came out. It's not good. And that first movie, And then over time, they fixed it, which, when I came to work on the T-shirts around 2012, 2013 for a year or two.
Yeah.
And I caught the episodes. I'm like, these are way better. These are way better. Sadly, at the time, I was like, I don't know if I care. I'll just take a pass. But I thought it was cool because it reminded me of Macquarie's artwork. I thought they did a really good job of moving away from maybe the Thunderbirds-like look, which was fine. I was fine with that too. But they were really incorporating a lot of Macquarie stuff.
But you hate cartoons because they're for kids. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. Well, like Tricks. And, but I think what it comes down to is I don't really have anyone to talk to about, like, listening to people on podcasts talk about the new episode and how great it is. It's like, all right, but I'm willing to give it a shot. I'm like, I'm not going to be, because I love like the Star Wars Visions coming out. I'm like, and I love the original 2D cartoon, which I have a fan edit that puts the 2D cartoon in chronological order as a movie with Copen and Crawls. It's quite good. So I watched this episode and it's actually pretty good. Like, I'll give it that. Like, I'm sure you've heard this a million times. A skip intro for a 3-second intro is pretty funny. Like, it's a Bad Batch and it's like skip intro. I'm like, it's 3 seconds. Like funny Disney. Like, it's almost a troll move.
So have you watched the whole season up to this point, or did you just jump in?
No, I just jumped in on this one. Yeah, I mean, look, I watched Star Wars starting with episode 4, so you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What does it matter, And I caught what was going on. Like, they're really good at making certain that if you haven't seen it, you can get what's going down,
Yeah, and then did you catch any of Rebels?
No, just the first episode, I think. Yeah, because I had to work on that. But look, when you work on the shirts,
Yeah.
the thing is, the more stuff you put in from the shows, other than pre-approved dialogue, the harder it is for things to get approved. So a lot of times, what they do is they give you words and catchphrases they want to see out there, and then you can watch it for like dialogue, but they don't want you doing that at work. They expect you to do it on your own time at home. It's a really weird industry, man. You know, it's like I gotta go home and watch all. Yeah, what's your job? I'm like,
so I can watch it here then while you pay me to watch it?
No, that's you're stealing money.
Yeah.
So it's always one of those things where it's like, okay, so what I do is I find out, I'll go listen to the podcast and see what people are excited about. So that's how I found Jedi Council and things like that at the time. People who were talking about the episodes. I'm like, I'd rather hear what fans think are great versus what I think they would respond to versus, you know, and that's kind of like my shortcut around all. And you can listen to those. You can listen to our show on your way to work if you were driving to an office, if this weren't in pandy times. So
yeah, no, that, and so, yeah, so I think that's kind of interesting because like when you're watching the episode, you're not having like 4 or 5 seasons of Hera being one of the stronger characters in a series that makes you go, this is fantastic because I associate this with something I loved from before. You're seeing it just for kind of what it is.
And because of her French accent, I didn't recognize her immediately from, I was like, hey, Chopper. And then I was like, when's this exist? Like, oh, this is before. Yeah, I know. Like, I had to go. I know it seems like all normal to you cats, but I'm like, all right, I'll go do the math. It's not hard to get caught up on. They've done a really good job of making it accessible.
Yeah, yeah. Like in Star Wars Rebels, she doesn't have the accent, and she just has a sort of a standard American accent. And then when her father, Cham Syndulla, who's in these episodes, shows up in one episode, he's kind of like gone a little on the Saw Gerrera side, where he's like, everyone's trying to kill me. You're trying to kill me. Are you betraying me? He's like one of those types. At that point.
You know?
Yeah. He's basically diet Saw Gerrera at that point. And when she's arguing with him, her accent comes back.
Right.
So it's kind of like one of those things like where, you know, you see like I don't know what the best scene to pull from is, but it reminds me of like in a movie where you have like an American Italian gangster, and he kind of talks sort of American. When he starts to argue with his mom, he starts to kind of get the old accent thing back. It's
Godfather 3.
Yeah, they kind of play it. They kind of play that angle, and yeah, it's fine. It's funny. It's funny, whatever. Maybe it's even realistic. I don't know. I don't have an accent. I don't think. I probably have a California bozo Bill and Ted accent actually, but
San Dimas
high.
Reggie Waters.
Oh man, yeah. I just spent like about 20 minutes explaining to my kids why it was hilarious that Napoleon goes to Waterloo, you know, or whatever. And what's the theme park is called that, but
Right.
Yeah, so the show, it pulls on the old heartstrings, if you will, from people who've been invested in the animation for a while, and that stuff I find both satisfying as a fan, and I'm not going to elevate myself to the level of a creator, but as an editor in my mind, I find it grating at moments. Like there's moments where I'm like, oh, that's not serving the story. That's like you basking in your own creative past. And I'm like, no, forward, make the connections, but don't make them stick like that. At the same time, I will never want to devalue the fact that maybe for one of the first significant times we have 2 little girls who are in Star Wars that are having an adventure all of their own, so to speak, and that both of them are clearly going to become important characters to the overall saga. I mean, Hera is mentioned in Rogue One. The ship shows up in Episode 9, has a whole television series, will likely show up in the Ahsoka series as it moves on. Oh shit, is that Explorers?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm clever.
And
they're like the female version of the Explorers in this. They got a ship, right?
Yeah.
They just need if Chopper was like in there like gunning things or doing, they would have the third crew of the Thunder Road. They were this close.
Yeah, I was curious too. Like I haven't had a chance to like do a side by side because I have to open up Firefox to like take screenshots of the show. So I just haven't bothered because they won't let you take screenshots of the show for no reason. That's only going to lead to free marketing for their show. Disney Plus,
No.
you're dumb, and Disney Plus people are already torrenting your stuff anyways, so that won't work. So why are you doing that? But that said, I was curious if the Chopper model was how different it was from the Rebels one. Like, did they just use like the wireframe and retexture it with Clone Wars textures, or was it exactly the same? I think it's different though. But that said, the stuff in the episode, like with Chopper, with him sneaking around and stuff like that, hard to get mad at that.
It was, I was reminded of Star Wars Morgan Freeman when he says, I mean, who really looks at another man's droid?
Right.
Right. And the trooper looks at it and is like, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite good.
Yeah. All of that stuff was like really solid. And then the which was kind of weird, like it's like the show is, I don't know if I'm using meta correctly, but it's very meta in the sense that in this episode, it's not really once again about the Bad Batch, as it's more than it was, but it's not really about the Bad Batch. It's about Hera. But then we get into it actually being about the clone trooper who was stationed with Hera's family on Ryloth. And that story and where it's going, I really dig, because what
Hauser?
we have Doogie Howser. I call him Doogie. If you know him, I call him Doogie. He's and Doogie
MDK.
Yeah, MDK. And he's fixing, he has a moral compass. I don't know. I wonder what's up with him in Order 66. Like, did he just not have a Jedi with where he was stationed? Like, it's interesting to me what his background is in terms of the bigger story, because most of these guys had Order 66 happen and they're just like, kill Jedi, I'll do whatever evil thing you want now. This guy's like, oh, hey, I'm gonna, in a previous episode that you didn't see, Hera sneaks off and goes into a restricted area. They find her and he's like, hey, next time your daughter does that, I'm gonna have to report it, but this time I'm just gonna act like I didn't see it. And he's like, oh, thanks, dude. So he's a solid Doogie, as you would expect from a Doogie. or Hauser. And so
missed opportunity for Hauser to type into his Mac at the end of the episode.
Yeah. Where he's just typing. He's like, today the weird tentacle people had a very bad day, but I learned a lot and I've grown now. If you Doogie Howser was
the
show.
Dianoga Diaries.
Right? Yeah, there's probably like a couple of like 20-year-olds who are like, what is this about? Doogie Howser was a show about a doctor with Neil Patrick Harris, and at the end he learned a lesson because he's a genius and everybody else sucks and is dumb compared to him. And then he would write like a little journal entry like, wow, my girlfriend Wanda, she's not as smart as me, but I do love her. But I really like boys. No.
Well, it's okay.
No. Neil Patrick Harris is like, it's totally not that dude. But that show felt like Neil Patrick Harris. He had a really natural performance in it. But anyways, I'm getting sidetracked with my dumb jokes.
90s tangent.
No, with 90s television shows. Ever heard of Twin Peaks? No. That was on at the same time, basically.
Damn fine cup of coffee, Jason.
But anyways, so you have this dude, and at the end, like the clones, they don't go full on like, I'm just going to start blasting the clones that are doing this bad thing. He's like, hey, don't go that way. I'm going to save you guys. Go the other way. They're waiting for you. And he walks out and gives his a little over the top but impassioned speech. And then a bunch of the stormtroopers lay their guns down. Or sorry, I should say clone troopers. And so we are seeing probably the opening of two things. And that's going to be that the Empire fully isn't going to trust clones because they were sort of infected by the Jedi over the course of those 3 years of having that moral compass. I'm just going to assume that on when they were, being grown in the test tubes and then they were growing up to be soldiers, there probably wasn't a lot of like do the right thing. It was probably a lot of follow orders of the people who made you. That's probably what their hypnotic sort of programming was just by going to school. When you see the little kids on those little terminals, they're probably learning stuff like that. But then they spend 3 years with Obi-Wan Kenobi types, and they start to go, hey, that's not right. I think that's kind of what we're seeing here.
Killing's bad,
Yeah,
innocence.
yeah. No,
War crimes are not good, huh?
Yeah, because it's like those dudes had a mission for like 3 years that was like, we're going to protect Ryloth. We're not occupying it. We're not an occupying force. We are keeping it, liberating it, or keeping it, free from Trade Federation invasion. And then now they realize, oh, we are an occupying force. That's not what we were always supposed to be. And so what is that going to mean? Like, are we going to see a clone uprising in the end? Where are we going to have sort of another clone war, one last clone war, where the clones stand up against the Empire and
Disney
get wiped
Civil
out?
War.
Yeah,
Disney
right.
Disney Civil War. They were right. Oh my God, he was a troll.
Filoni is starting another clone war, and he's gonna take the whole sequel trilogy down in the end. No, yeah, it's such a wrestling mentality.
Well, season 2 is titled "Inglorious Bad Bastards." I don't know if you're aware of that.
Now I am. No, but yeah, I hope it goes that way. Like, I hope that we start to have like new wars that happen during the dark times that we never heard of.
George's explanation that eventually they just got rid of them and put people because they were, like, he didn't really ever clarify too good why they got rid of the clones. Just maybe they couldn't make more, or they just, like, what is he say? They eventually replaced them with people who couldn't shoot. Like, it never made any sense. But if there was an insurrection amongst clones, right, or almost like a virus, like a mental, like a thought virus, right, like very THX 1138, right, like
blue pill, bro.
Let's be so careful we don't end up in a bunch of feeds. People are like, are you for or against? I don't know what this is about.
I like to take both pills. I just take all the pills party, man. I'll be honest with you.
I take the Mace Windu purple pill. I mean,
yeah, I'll be honest, dude. Like, I was partying with Neo and those dudes in the suit by the end of the night. It was a good time. But sorry. Do you want to know?
But that would make for a great event film too if they did like an event movie. Like that sort of did that, where it was
the last Clone War or something like that. Yeah, I think George Lucas's idea for the Stormtroopers was most likely wrapped up kind of with what we were talking about yesterday, where like the Naboo N1 Starfighter and the Nubian, those are like artisan ships from an artisan era where craftsmanship is really appreciated. And things aren't just like streamlined and manufactured in like such a cheap way. And so it becomes more economical and more even atrocious, and less there's less care in it when you are just making people oppress themselves. And so the Stormtroopers, they weren't trained, right? Like, those guys basically got a master's degree in being soldiers. And these Stormtroopers, they're just like, they go to an academy for a couple of weeks and become Han Solo, and are like, screw this.
Their academy's 3 weeks and they get a union.
Yeah, pretty much. Actually, the Palpatine's not giving a union. No.
It's Union 69, bitch.
Yeah, he puts a chip in your head whenever you want to unionize. You're like, no.
Yeah.
In case anybody was wondering, Dale is Groot. He wanted us to know. Now we do.
That never gets old. Like, I thought maybe 8 years ago it might get old, or 6 years ago, but it hasn't gotten old.
No.
I'm surprised.
And Dez, I said it right. Dez says, greetings, everyone.
Hey, you.
But anyways, yeah, I'm not ignoring the chat, just trying to get into the Clone or the Bad Batch a little bit more.
Well, I had an observation. So the scene where Rambo clone drops on top of the leader drops on top of the pro droid and like knifes him in the eye. I was like, man, like in a proper game development ecosphere, that would be right now there'd be a Bad Batch Switch game that let you do that. Like, it would be like a Nintendo or version of like Rainbow Six with Star Wars for kids. You know what I mean? Where you could like drop on pro droids and stag them in the eye, and sneak in with your little troop commandos. Like, it's just a shame that that stuff doesn't exist right now because of the, however, the licensing doesn't work out, or EA and these companies don't think that mobile's a place for kid development or anything, like,
Yeah.
because I thought that was great. I'm like, I want to knife a pro right in the eye. How did I never think of that?
Yeah. Yeah, no, and he's not even like cool about it either. He like throws it at the kids, like, there you go, there's your probe droid. Are you scared? Because you should be. No, I was like, whoa, man, calm down there, psycho. But yeah, and there's like things about that still linger from the Rebels era that I wish. Maybe it's not fair to say it's from the Rebels era, but it's like a Star Wars animation kind of thing where and it's from the Clone Wars too, but you always want to have like a moral kind of purpose to the episode and the heroes do the right thing. But there's these little Star Wars things that they could be doing that I wish they did. Like at the end, the Syndulas are like, here's your money. And he's like, keep it. Like he's like, totally, he doesn't take the money. Well, if I was writing that episode, because this is Star Wars during the dark times, he would have been like, here's the cost of the mission. Keep the rest. That's how it needs to start going with that stuff. Like they have to buy space gas. They have to space eat. They have to like, you know what I mean? They're like, and like they've
they
done
have to
so
space
much.
Wawa, Jason. Don't
Yeah.
you know that? Like...
But in the end, he's just like, nah, like take it all, like, and I'm like, he's like, and then right then there he goes like, I have these people to take care of, and I'm like, yeah, that's why you take a little bit of yours that you needed for the cost of the mission, and you don't profit. You give them that. I was like, that would have been fair. I don't know why, for some reason, that like really stuck out to me.
And now we get the 2 for 2 at AM PM. Everybody, let's go! Corn dogs. That's how you feed a family, man.
I am seeing some major lag on my camera, and I hope that you guys aren't losing me right now, but I may have to hand the show over to you and restart this browser or something.
Hand it to the guy who can't see the chat or talk about Clone Wars history. Let me see if I can't bring the chat up, but at least let me jump into the live stream really quickly.
Okay.
And
I'm going to.
All right. Yeah, so he's going to reset. He's having some technical issues today. What's up, everybody? Let me look into the chat, see what we got. Let me put up something here in the background. We got a little technical issue here. Little behind the scenes trouble. Here we go. Where is? Let's just put. There we go. There we go. So. Nike, Taylor, man, you're funny. Let's see here. Mike Papa says hi. Ken Carlson says, any chance this pilot could revolve around Atlantis? Well, let's ask Jason that. The item that's in Toby Jones's hand in the one of the pick. Oh, okay, we'll get to that. Talking Bad Batch again. Yeah, new episode last night. So that's it. That's where we're at. That's all. Everything else is about scoops. So while we're waiting for Jason to reboot, let's talk about some thoughts I had about Jason's music. It's amazing. Oh, what's up, Jason? How you doing? Can't hear you now. There you go. Now we can hear you.
Now you can hear me? Okay. Yeah.
We're just about to talk a lot of shit, so...
Yeah, not sure why today it is being very bad for me. I don't know if it's my ISP or if it's my computer.
I was gonna read questions from the chat, and I'm going through, and it's like, let's see, inside info, don't have indie stuff. So
okay, restarting again because it is being bad. Sorry.
Well, at least there's 2 of us, so Jason doesn't have to worry about just ending the podcast every 3 seconds. So it does happen, folks. All right, so what else did I put down? I put down the low angle shots looking up at the ship are fantastic. Shows great weight and scale. Lighting inside the cockpit is awesome too. So just from an artistic standpoint and a noob, I would say that they've done a really good job of like getting the scale and weight down of these the ships and stuff. I mean, obviously they've been doing the show for the better part of 12 something years, or 10 years now, 12 years almost, right? Yeah, 2008, 2002. It's a while, yeah. So my math is fuzzy, but they did a really excellent job. The shot where like they jump in the ship to steal it, and then it's cutting from the cockpit to the low angle ground looking up was really excellent. I just don't understand why there isn't a video game right now that I can play of the Bad Batch, or even anything with this stuff. So, or like the animated, like a Clone Wars version of Battlefront, right? The Clone Wars universe. All these characters in like an animated stuff. I'm sure it's on mobile on your dumb phone. You gotta play with the screen and stuff. So I don't play that. Homie, don't play that. Don't notice the troopers now. Stormtroopers are not clones. There are several different voices. Yeah, I was looking at the credits, and like several of them have the same actor, but then most of them are varying, and that might just be a production thing, or it could be story related. They definitely look like some of the characters to me look like either they're different bodies or they're just aging differently, which is totally possible. But actor wise, it may not be plausible to have one actor do the voice for everyone. Or it might just get boring or confusing sometimes. So close enough or slightly different. Everyone's going to have like a slightly different voice. That's why when you do like George Lucas impersonations, no one really sounds like George Lucas, but we all kind of get it. So it's probably why. Wonder if the age, James Washington says, wonder if the age acceleration kept going for the clones or they died out. And that's why the stormtroopers took over. I've always wondered that too. Like, what was the real reason? Back in the EU days, it was George Saboth, right? It was just like a crazy Jedi clone. And I mean, the way it got, like the way my impersonation was pre-prequels was that clones eventually went insane. And it just wasn't a good idea to clone people, especially in large quantities. Well, however they did that. And then when George announced that, oh yeah, the stormtroopers are all clones, that's how they built this giant army of clones, the Jango Feds. I figured, well, Jango's kind of a compromised dude, so perhaps they do all eventually go insane. Now I think it might not be that way. Just based off this episode, it might be something where there's literally a philosophical split, and there's a civil war amongst the clones, which honestly, I, up until today, never really thought about. So that is so crazy. Like, I'm like, that it's a simple idea, but it's a good simple idea. Like, it's like peanut butter and jelly. It's like, why didn't I think of that earlier? How did it take thousands of years to get to that question? Kenneth Elliott says, from an artistic standpoint, The Bad Batch is a huge step up from Clone Wars at its height. I'm so glad Disney improved from the cheap Rebels look. Yeah, I mean, initially when I saw the Rebels cartoon, I was like, okay, they're going full Ralph McQuarrie, right? Like, I'll pull up a good McQuarrie painting here that I think kind of like gives you that feel. All right, it'll show up in a second. Something sleeker and less textury. It's probably what they were really trying to do. But after having gone from like literally like a detailed animated version of Attack of the Clones, I can see how it would feel like a step down. Like they were cutting corners. They probably did get a budget hit when Disney bought them. I mean, no doubt. I'm a big fan of the Ducktales cartoon that Disney relaunched. And at first it seemed people thought the art style was simplistic compared to the original DuckTales. But after a while, I realized this is amazing. I have to wonder, though, like how much money Disney puts into each animated series. Which is going to be funny, especially when you compare it to the new What If series coming from Marvel Studios, which they're clearly putting all the moolahs into that cartoon, which looks pretty phenomenal. So this particular episode was dope. It's simple, but I guess like if you kind of know of Rebels, it's a good prequel. It's like a prequel episode. Also, and when I was saving this for Jason's question, but if you guys didn't notice, I'm always amazed, like when Chopper or any droid does the arm plug in and picks a lock into the wall, like that's just something that came out of the 70s, right? Like George they just stuck the thing in the wall and it's picking it and it's doing nothing. But it's just funny how like when you look at that now, that little gimmick gives you so much It's so much money. Like you're just like, oh, he's picking the locks, he's doing the math, and he's hacking the system. Like it's like the droid equivalent of the keyboard. Like I'm hacking the system. Hold on, right? So, but it works. I'm always there's literally just an arm turning, and you think things are happening. So, it's good to see that those gags, as they would call them, in the writers' room, still hold up. They still hold up. So we almost had Jason. But it did not work. It did not work. That being said, let's see what else I got here. Did not know the Twi'leks were French. So this is like the occupied France version of Ryloth. So that was new to me. I was like, oh, they're French. Okay, that's cool. I never thought about that initially, but makes sense. There's definitely a nouveau aspect to the Twi'leks headgear and ornament like that. And again, to get what Jason was talking about, the artisan design of StarCraft, like the Naboo fighter, they call that look Space Nouveau, right? In the production of episode 1. So like I was thinking like the design pre-Imperial was very Space Nouveau, French in design. So that's actually a nifty touch that works pretty well, actually. Was it, Carl asked, what was it that Target said about conscripted troopers versus clone troopers? I do not know. Kenneth, I will write that one down, Carl. Put that one down. Kenneth asks, I have a theory that the Bad Batch will eventually join the Rebel Alliance, and Echo is somehow associated with the name Echo Base. Oh my god! Like that is a clever. What is the frequency, Kenneth? The frequency is good fucking call. Like that's a really good observation. Echo Base. I mean, not that everything has to be a tie-in, like a Easter egg. I mean, this got to that, this got to there, but that's pretty cool. Don't know if that's how they would write that. Like I always want, like those rooms don't typically go that way, but that would be a nice little Easter egg. He's
all
back.
Right. Am I back? I just unhooked everything, and I've gone bare bones. I'm on my laptop stuff. I don't know what went wrong that time. But
see what happens when you mess with Kindle.
Right. That's what I tried to I tried to pull up some stuff on the Kindle for you guys, so that way I could show you guys some stuff from the making of book, and that was the whole plan. And it apparently messed everything up. Like the audio device isn't responding after that and stuff. I'm like, okay, whatever. That's boring stuff. So
it's like the one subject I'm not informed on. You know what I mean? Like, of course it would be this one.
I mean, okay. I don't know. I've done like, this is like I don't know, like our 200th video or something ridiculous now in the last couple of weeks. And it's like, nothing's like this has happened before. I don't know why it's happening now, but here we are. So yeah, we were talking about, and I hope I don't retread too much, but we were talking about how I think that if there was like an artisan kind of era with the prequels, and that's what Lucas was going for, and then we move away from that, and then we start to see like the rise of stormtroopers as it starts to become easier to have the people oppress themselves. Clones don't really have family in the same way, I think, that like a stormtrooper does. Like if the Empire came to me and said, hey, you're going to be a stormtrooper or we're going to kill you and your whole family, and you're like, oh, okay, I'll do it. And then if you notice, like in terms of the stories, when it seems to make the most sense, the people who don't have the most to lose are the people who become the rebels. And that's kind of tied into like the Joseph Campbell, like call to adventure kind of idea. And what happens when you like refuse it? Well, then the mysticism in the world kills your family, and now you have to go on the adventure. So we burned Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru. Now you have to go. And whereas like in another reality, they may have come and said, we're going to burn Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen, or you're going to become a stormtrooper. And he's like, okay, I'll do it. And like, that's what I think Biggs does. Like Biggs, he jumps ship. He does it, but then for some reason has no reason to stay, and then he jumps ship and becomes a rebel.
I had wondered, I try to turn my mind off when I'm watching movies, especially the first time, right?
Yeah.
But for some reason, when I was watching The Last Jedi the first time, I had initially thought Luke will refuse, right? And he does. He refuses to go to the planet to help the resistance or whatever. And I thought Leia will die because of that, right? Like, and he's gonna have to like remember, you know what I mean? Like he's gonna have to be forced one more time. And it didn't happen, but I was like, I wonder if like in a Lucas, if Lucas had given notes like universe, if that would have been one of those. It's rhymes. It's like poetry. We burn them then, and then 20 years later we burn them again. You know, like
yeah.
I know it's dark. It's dark as shit. But the refusal of the call there generally is a consequence with in the Joseph Campbell. Like, I mean, the Hero with 1,000 Faces, which I got my copy back there highlighted because I dug through it back in the 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like a guidebook to writing stories. It's just how the different cultures tell the same stories and they repeat over and over again. And here's the overlap, like the Venn diagram overlap of around the world. And they seem to all have these things. And then there's all these things that are unique to different cultures. And I think it sort of has been diluted into the fan ecosphere of just like, you know, it's just you go on the thing with the Greek and Homer and then eventually Luke Skywalker done, you know, like it's like, yeah, sort of, you know, like not really, but
yeah, no, it's like you can look at, like, you could take you know, and Joseph Campbell's really just playing on Carl Jung, and he's really just like taking everything, like all the work of Carl Jung, and some of that stuff's probably severely outdated.
He says it in the Bill Moyers interview, in the Power of the Myth interviews. Did you ever watch those? Yeah. So they were big on the 90s. They played them on PBS, and I bought the DVD set like in 2001. And I had the book, actually. 97 is when I got the book, which changed my life. That interview, I think, is even better than The Hero with 1,000 Faces because it's just a conversation.
Yeah.
But he even says he's a student of Jung and Jungian like theory.
Yeah, and he's so like the books are, you know, academic writing. They're like kind of drawn out to some extent with lots of examples that when you're like, okay, I get it. And like at that point, he was such a master lecturer, and he had done it so many times that when he has that conversation, it's just like it's all there. And in some ways, it might even be better to read a transcript of those conversations.
It has been. It's a book. You can get the book is just a transcript.
The book is a transcript too?
The Power of the Myth is a transcript. I didn't even know it was a physical interview. I had just got the book because it was 97.
The DVD set of that.
Yeah, so in 97, they put out a book, probably because of the special editions, you know? Mm-hmm. And I was at the mall, and it was my birthday, and I was with this girl I was friends with, and she's like, I want to get you something. And I'm like, he helped Lucas. I didn't know how. You know, I just know. Yeah. Lucas always talked about Joseph Campbell, and that turned out to be, that's a transcript of the Bill Moyer interview. So that would be the book I'd always recommend. If people want to read on Joseph Campbell-like theories, that's a place to go do that. The Power Myth is it's accessible. The Hero of 1,000 Faces is not, it's not accessible to the average person. It's definitely scholastic. And it was written like in the 30s and 40s. Like, I mean, it's quite old, you know, like it's.
Yeah, Campbell was doing the research for it during the Great Depression.
Yeah.
And that's why people ask him, they're like, what did you do during the Great Depression? He's like, oh, I kind of was in the library. That's kind of, you know, he kind of like, in a way, he feels like he kind of skipped it because he was just so immersed in that. That said, yeah, I think it is really valuable if you want to discuss Star Wars story all the time. At the same time, is it a roadmap on how to write Star Wars? No, not really. And it's like there's other academics like Truby who writes books about story structure. And if you read Truby, you can see like, oh, what's the story structure for The Godfather and Home Alone and all of the kind of hit movies, the blockbuster as a genre. And you can kind of see it there, and you start to understand Star Wars a bit better in that way. And then you start to understand, and then when you know what like the monomyth is, the monomyth doesn't apply to every character or every single story outside of like something like Star Wars. but you do see like there are certain moments that you'll see like in The Godfather, Michael's sort of refusing the call to step into the family business in a way, and the family doesn't really want him to do it. His father wants more for him, I think, in that first film. And then, but what happens when he refuses it, and when and his idiot brother steps in and starts trying to take over, and then it's like, yeah, but that's that. The Godfather is not a monomyth at the same time, so it's like that's important, I think, to discern here.
If you want some free, if just before I forget, if people want some free content on story structure and these sort of things, there's a podcast feed you can subscribe to on all the podcasts for free called Thundergrounds. And they do a bunch of shows, but one of them they do is called Writer Blockbusters. So it's 3 guys, a screenwriter, I forget their names, some horrible names, a script consultant / screenwriter, but the main screenwriter writes for Nickelodeon and
that's a Scripty McScoop.
Jimmy George,
Will Wrightington.
Yeah, Wills of the Journalson.
And Sally Scriber.
But they go through a movie and they treat the movie as if it's the final draft of an actual screenplay. Mm-hmm. So they go through like they did The Last Jedi, they did, they've done Rise of Skywalker if you're interested in Star Wars stuff. But they cover Raiders, Gremlins, Back to the Future, the pilot to Cobra Kai season 1. And so it's very good, but because if you want to get into more, if you're interested in story structure and the way screenplays are laid out and why decisions are made, it's an excellent fan. It's friendly too. It's super fun. They're super fun. It's not boring and dry or pretentious. So you're talking about Truby. There's like Michael Haig, and Vogel, right? Yeah, those 2 guys had a thing, and then obviously Robert McKee's Story, which is just like it's like this thing, guys. My Robert McKee's Story. Did you ever see the movie adaptation?
Yeah.
Yeah, Charlie Kaufman, about Nick Cage playing Charlie Kaufman and his twin brother. But it's all about telling a story, and there's this, the structure thing is set because if you look at a TV series like The Bad Batch, they got to create 20 something episodes, so it helps, especially when you got to create large amounts of content, but it's not the only way to do it. As we've talked before, Quentin Tarantino doesn't really subscribe to much of any of it. He comes up with a generic premise, maybe an idea where he wants it to go, but then he just writes characters and allows the characters to unfold that story as it needs to get there,
And he always has like a unique organization. Like he'll use like title card. Like he's really good at doing that, not letting it be messy. Like he lets it flow and then wrangles it in.
Have you read his screenplays?
I read a couple. What's that one that leaked? Was the Hateful Eight when that leaked? I read that, and I probably read
the Django Unchained if you can. The Django Unchained screenplay is fantastic. There's a few cut scenes, but he writes screenplays unlike any other screenplay I've read. In that it really feels like a guy is just telling you the story. He's telling you the story. It's the least amount of technical description I've ever heard. But it's a joy to read. His screenplays are really, really fun to read. So,
right.
And that translates on the screen. But that's what you're talking about there. This is the typical call to adventure. And unfortunately, I do think because George Lucas gave all those interviews about Joseph Campbell's, Hollywood just goes, oh, that's it. We'll just follow the formula, and then you get all these generic chosen one like stories. And how many like generic Dungeons and Dragons like films have they made too that we forgot about, right? Remember every other year there was like a fantasy film we forgot about. Even like Reign of Fire, which is probably the better of them, still sort of has this like it has a Star Wars scene, which is fun.
It does, yeah. They do Empire Strikes Back, right?
Yeah.
As a by the fire stage play almost or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they tend to and so when it came to like, the sequels, I kept in my own ecosphere, my friends and writers friends, I was like, they need to lean more into Kurosawa and less into Joseph Campbell for a while. And the Mando leans into like the Magnificent Seven, which is like the Western version of Kurosawa, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's like it's such an Star Wars is an amalgamation of so many different elements. But when you see it in animation, to kind of bring it back to that, there tends to at times be a bleed through in like your very standard animation tropes, or your animated shows of today moments. And it's like there's these little things that are expected, and like they have to do it in the show because it's sort of what the medium is today, and it's intended for an audience, generally speaking, that is the Disney Plus kid, and that's where it at times annoys me.
Well, have you watched the Ducktales cartoon, the newer one from 2017?
No, I saw the
That is
original.
fantastic.
It's well done.
Like I heard at first, I was like, I like the art style. People are like, I don't like it. It looks like a comic book. I'm like, Scrooge McDuck was comics. I don't understand this.
Yeah.
But the storytelling wise is fantastic. You'll have to get used to Scrooge McDuck being David Tennant.
Yeah.
And now after watching it, I only hear Scrooge McDuck when I hear David Tennant. It's the funniest thing how it flips. But they take some of these, it's a very smartly written show, to keep using adverbs. But they take these tropes and sometimes they just do them, but they'll do them in a meta way, but also in an entertaining and like in a unique way too. It's very, very good. It's like, when you recommend things to people, it's a hit or miss, It's one of the few things where I'm like, if you can have fun, watch it, because your kids, I don't know if your kids are going to like it, but kids will enjoy it, and its parents will get a whole nother level of storytelling from it. They do a good job.
Most likely I'm going to put it on and my kids aren't going to like it. My kids are hardcore. They're like, we want to watch Child's Play. We want to watch I'm just like,
well,
all right.
There are some like murderous like moments in the cartoon, shockingly so. I was rather surprised.
So, hey, Mike Papas, how's it going, dude? I don't know if you're still here, if I missed you. So really quickly, I don't know if you answered stuff in the chat that I shouldn't hit again or not, but
I can give you some of the ones. Like Carl alludes, was it that what was it that Tarkin said about conscripted troopers versus clone troopers earlier in the season?
Yeah. Earlier on, you could tell that there's this internal Imperial debate going on about where are we going to take this and what do we want to do. And I can't remember his name. The Imperial guy in this newest episode, who's been in a few, he's clearly wants to get stormtroopers going. Like that's his plan. Is he knows that these clones are kind of a pain in the ass, and that they're going to need to move beyond it. But with that said, that guy is so dead, I think. Although when Santa was on and we were talking, and Star Wars Santa, and we thought that Hera's mom was gonna die in this episode, by this episode too, because she dies. And so it's like, you know that from Rebels. And so it kind of seemed like they were setting that up, because they were having like those moments that felt telegraphed before in the previous episode, where she's like, why were you in the restricted area? And she's all, I never said I was in the restricted area. And then she's like, I have my ways. And you're like, oh, that mom, she's so wonderful. And it was like, it felt like they were setting her up like, hey, here's some good stuff about her before we knock her off. But she lived, and that was surprising in the episode for me. And I have to think, though, I wonder if in the next episodes, if we go back to Ryloth again, or if we have the Bad Batch figure out a bunch of clones lay down their weapons because they thought that stuff was wrong, and they're going to bust those dudes out. Because you would think that would be the next, like, those guys really took it on the nose for the Bad Batch and the Syndulas there. So the show could write it off that the Syndulas saved them. Don't worry, the Syndulas got them, some comic book or something. But it happening on screen, I kind of think it needs to go the other way. I think that it's going to need to be saved by the Bad Batch. At least it should.
You think in the series, they should, in these episodes that where things occur in books or comics, they should do that thing in comics where they put a little a little thing at the bottom with the asterisk, happened in issue 264 of, you know.
Yeah,
If you want
editor
to see more, you know.
editor note Stan Lee or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ken asked if there's any chance the plot could revolve around Atlantis. Of the Bad Batch, no, wrong universe, dude. Sorry, you're wrong. No, no. In Indiana Jones, I mean, anything's possible, but at the same time, there's been nothing indicative of Atlantis, and the fact that it was already a video game and stuff like that
Yeah.
with story attached to it makes me think that the creatives would always feel like that was a bit like been there for Indy. We should move on to somewhere else. That's just my guess, you know. And then the item that's in Toby Jones's hand in that one pic is a device that looks like what they used in Atlantis. Okay, maybe it's going to be a reference to it. I mean, or maybe
the world's oldest compass or whatever it was.
Yeah, and like, you know, they're
Apothecary or whatever.
Yeah, I did a story on MakingStarWars.net too, and like a friend of mine's like, look into this, and I did, and I'm like, well, it could be that. I don't remember what it's called now, but some kind of time travel machine, these time travel gears that were like
a gizmo.
A gizmo. There we go. But
I just little furry creatures.
God, dude, there was I don't know if it was. I can't remember if I read the script or if it was fake. But I feel like around 1997 or so, I read a script for Gremlins, and it was Gremlins in World War II. And I think I read it on Drew's Scriptorama, I want to say.
Right, yeah, Scriptorama, yes.
Right, I used to read that as a lot back then. And and it was a script for Gremlins, and it was like the Gremlins messing up airplanes, and it had the character. It was about the guy who grows up with the kid, the war guy from Gremlins who like lives next door. It was like,
the one that died, Fetterman.
Yeah.
Why do that's the name I fucking remember. It's Fetterman. Yeah, who died and then came back in the sequel.
Right.
Because he's just too good. He's also in The Explorers, my friend.
Yes, he
has that line in The Explorers where you feel he was a kid who had those dreams when he was a kid, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I grabbed two, so we got a couple. Not a lot of behind the scenes Explorers picks, by the way.
No. I was always surprised that movie wasn't bigger than it was too. Like I saw that one at the drive-in, and I was like, I love this movie, and I got it on VHS. I did the old back when VHS cost like $100. We had the old record this VHS to this blank tape.
Genre films weren't tearing up the box office in 86, 87. I mean, RoboCop was the one breakout hit, and Aliens too, but there was a lot of them, and they all kind of disappeared. It was movies like, you know, not Down and Out in Beverly Hills, but like Beverly Hills Cop 2, Big Business.
Twins.
You know? Those touchstone comedies, you know. Overboard, you know, those kinds of things.
Yeah, Overboard. That one doesn't hold up. Well, hey, James. Justin says, now all I want is a Logan S. Zorro starring Banderas and Mangold directing. Maybe wouldn't it be cool if in the end Banderas is more than an Indiana Jones trope that we've come to know? And what if he is sort of a Zorro-esque, not Zorro, but you know what I mean, like a Zorro-esque character who is a hero like Indy as well. Like there were things that they were trying to do. There were rumors. I don't know how true they are, but there was like a rumor in the 90s that they were looking to get Kevin Costner to come into one of the Indy films and be his brother. And
that rings a bell. 100%.
Yeah, not sure if that was definitely. I definitely read this rumor more than once. Not sure if it just went around Hollywood or if it was like there was a talk and that got out or what. But that was like a thing. And not obviously Banderas can't be Indy's brother. And at Indy's age, and to discover he had a brother would be a bit weird in terms of the general story with the dad being dead already.
His dad did get around though. Last Crusade proves he's a bit of a coxman. You know? Yeah,
I mean, I was the last man. Oh man, what are you doing?
You know,
God, there's this story meeting with Lucas and Kasdan and Spielberg, and they're like basically like saying that like in their minds when Indy and Marion first get together, she's like 12 or something. It's like, what are you doing, guys?
Well, it was like Lucas who wanted to go younger, and they were like, no, she's like 17, maybe 16. Like it wasn't appropriate. But then Lucas was like, she could be like 12.
That's even worse. But
yeah, and it was like, no, we can't.
no,
You know.
yeah.
But I mean, that's in the film when you see girls like lusting after him, he just ignores them. You know.
Yeah.
So, whatever, different era.
Yeah. It is weird in that way. That Dale says, when we're talking about the Bad Batch again, we just do what we want. We're just all over the place. Technical difficulties, it breaks the rhythm. Then you just go where you're gonna go. So James Washington says, thank you for being a channel member, James. I appreciate it. I wonder if Boyd is playing Indy and Willie Scott's son. Wouldn't that would be funny if he just had with every. Well, I guess he can't have one with the chick from Austria because she fell down a hole. But hey, look at you having dinner with him.
I've been busy.
So he's got his Willie Scott Indy background. God, Indy in the white tuxedo is something that I wish we got more of. And this is the one thing I don't think we're gonna. It doesn't seem so, anyways. In this movie, we haven't seen any signs of it. But I was like, there you go. Oh, Indy went on so many adventures. I go first. Yeah, it's so good. It's so good when you see like that other side of him, like the Indy nightlife Indy or whatever you want to call that, like the Playboy Indy.
When the figures, they had those action figures back in like 2011 or 12 around there. They were showing them off.
Yeah,
and I was at San Diego Comic-Con. I was working with a writer whose brother was the head of Hasbro. And so that was when they had at Comic-Con, they had that big Indiana Jones booth with like the rocks and like, these are our new toys. And he was walking us through the night before it launched. Yeah. And I'm like, are you going to have melting Nazi toys? And he's like, we can't do the Nazis. I'm like, then what's the point? Like have them, you're going to be able to pull, is it going to be like the He-Man slime pit where I can reach into someone's chest and pull out their beating heart? He was like, stop, it's for kids. I'm like, Indiana Jones is not an action figure for kids line. This should be your mature line. I'm like, and then I was exactly tuxedo Indy, like night on the Shanghai town Indy, like St. Jack's Indy. And he was like, don't go there. Like, I was like, all right, man. I mean, I'm for it. Give me the Club Obi-Wan playset. I wanted all of it, because it's like the Hasbro Pulse before there was the Hasbro Pulse. They tried to make that into like I can see a version of Indiana Jones in the 80s that fit in with those like Rambo cartoons.
Right.
And the Chuck, you know what I mean? All those like, it's the Karate Kid cartoons, and here's Indy on his plucky adventures. Dude, you gotta fight Short Round in each episode, hiding in the background somewhere or something.
Okay, so am I crazy? Am I crazy to think if Boyd is not Mutt, it's kind of an egregious, very weird decision. Because of the motorcycle, I guess if he's like a new character, then he's a new character. But if like they're gonna give him like if it's not Mutt, he meets every checkbox to be Mutt Williams. Or do you think he goes by Mutt Williams? Do you think he keeps his name, or do you think he changes it to Mutt Jones when his mom gets married? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't Mutt Jones. Mutt Ravenwood. Maybe he goes back.
Yeah. It just, anyways, it's like, I think if they are going where it looks like if he is Indy's sidekick in this, it's going to definitely be weird if they just didn't make him Mutt. It would be like disowning the fourth movie, but in a way that I think it doesn't have a lot of class to it if they did it that way. So he changed his name to
Costner.
Yeah. I'm expecting him to be Mutt Williams based off of that motorcycle, based off of the age, and based off of there was the rumor. Like I literally heard the rumor he was playing Mutt. I talked about that before the picture came out, and then the motorcycle comes. I gotta just do some. What are you thinking?
His father was dead in episode 4, right? Like in Indy 4.
Yeah. Yeah, he died.
So,
He's definitely dead by 58. So he probably dies sometime between 55 and 59, 57.
and this is 69, but his dad was still having fun in 49. It's possible it could be Indy's younger brother. We're twins. You know what I mean? But
we don't know how long he was out there with Elsa. We have no idea.
We don't know. Well, I mean, I'm a Nazi, I'm part Nazi. Oh no. Oh no, it brings up a whole nother slew of problems. Like
there was a picture of a Nazi from the movie who looked just like Boyd, and I still wonder. No, I don't wonder that now because Boyd would be too old in the 60s, so it's definitely not him. But there was one actor I was like, "Is that Boyd? Is that him?" But
the elegant solution is just it's a recast of Mutt. I mean, you can recast people.
Sure.
You can't.
Especially if Mutt is high school aged in that movie, and then this is him at 30. You know what I mean? Post college in his or around his new career kind of age, like or whatever. And I mean, it has to be
24, 25-ish.
I mean, because that's like this is about. I think Crystal Skull is 50. Is 50? Is it 57?
It's 10 years before this one, at least 10 to 12 years. So.
And then this one's 69 because we know the moon landing.
Right.
So
you're pushing 30.
Yeah. So and then Boyd fits that depiction. So in a way, too bad it wasn't Shia LaBeouf, but Boyd looks pretty cool in those pictures, and he does look like he has a promising action hero future. Honestly, that guy.
I thought he was the underrated role in Logan.
Yeah.
He really, I'd always wanted to see Reavers on screen as a comic book geek. And then when he was like, he's kind of, he was the only one really. He had a group of people he led, but he was fantastic. I was like, this guy's got a future,
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, he could definitely. I'm not gonna be like, you could take over the whole thing, give it to Boyd. But if they went that route, I mean, I wouldn't be against it.
Well, if they end up, I mean, the idea was always to spin Mutt off, and so if Boyd was to be the one who picks it up, and it does go that way, if this movie connects and Boyd's fantastic in it, then there you go. You mean Disney gets to sort of they would get to move into like the 70s and 80s at the same time with Mutt, and there's just so much. I mean, Mutt Williams in a Miami Vice like adventure. I'll take it.
Or they could just remake Firefox where he sneaks into Russia and steals their supersonic jet.
Oh wow! I think I actually had that. I think I had on my neighbor had an Apple IIc, and I think he actually had the Firefox Apple IIc game.
Did you ever play the arcade game?
I played I think I only played the Apple IIc version.
Because the arcade game was they reused the Star Wars arcade cabinet, so it's the same handles, the same
like,
cab. But instead of a Vectrex like thing where you're shooting, it's full motion video.
Yeah.
Where you're shooting. Yeah.
Yeah. I could probably emulate it. I should emulate it. It probably would be pretty fun. Fun to play
for about 3 minutes.
About 3 minutes.
It's not the deepest game.
No. But Nike asked, any new Andor, Kenobi, or Book of Boba scoops in the works, Jason? Always. The problem always comes down to what can I talk about and when I can't. There's stuff coming. There's something coming next week, probably not from me, but from a friend of mine that I think will ignite some discussion too. Obviously, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to give away what they're working on, but there is good stuff coming. Kenneth says, I would love to see an entire action film about the Twi'lek planet. Interesting culture and people. Yeah. I wouldn't mind seeing them go there. The one thing I would be afraid of is that like the extras, when they start to get kind of like low rent and they have like that makeup on and there's like a bunch of them, might start to look kind of shoddy. But
there's that shot in this episode where they're all crowded out and they're just like 3 or 4 different colors. I'm like, almost looks like a bowl of Fruity Pebbles.
Yeah.
Like there's not enough color differentiation to like, it's a little, I'm like, well, whatever. I guess that's the Twi'lek cereal, right? Like,
yeah. Well, it's like I get where they're going with it and like making the good ones. And in Star Wars Galaxies, you kind of saw like the start of that, like with the Mon calls and that too, where they're like making them look cool, like vibrant colors. You want to be the hero. But remember, like Bib Fortuna started this shit, man. Bib Fortuna was Twilight, and when no one else was doing it, and he's just an albino with red eyes, and
Well,
like
him and the dancer.
and yeah, and the Green Dancer, and it's like they don't all have to be pretty. They could make some of them look pretty ugly, and a lot of
scary.
yeah, exactly. And like a lot of the models that we saw, like for the extras in the show, which I'm actually not complaining about Bad Batch. Like it gets more egregious in Rebels when you see like a person who becomes like a main character is an extra in like 5 episodes and then is a main character later on. I called her Hat Lady. And it's just like, there she goes. Oh, she's the governor of the area. She's just walking around. She must be shopping now. And it's just like, come on, guys. But they're definitely doing better with it in this one. But like one of them, I thought I could be wrong, but I thought I saw Ayla Secura like repainted a little bit, like one of like her model maybe, like that's so like they're definitely like doing it on the cheap, but they're making it happen. It's not awful. Not complaining necessarily, but it's always the fears that it goes back to the really weak extras. Weird way to take that question. I admit it, dude. There he is back there. Look at that little dude. Is that Warwick Davis playing that concept art? James Washington said, only just noticed the troopers are now stormtroopers and not clones. There was several different voices. Yeah, the voices that we heard, like I think we heard a lady voice. And the lady voice was one of the 3 or 4 of the troopers that goes with Crosshair. I think that's what that was. That was how I took it in that a few episodes ago. And so, yeah, I think we're starting to see them kind of emerge. And then we talked about that one. Jason Ward, that guy's canceled. I'm not talking to him. What else is there? Wait.
Will not return for season 2.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I meant to put that one in there. Steven's all Saga Gerrera. Pretty good. That's a that's a good podcast name.
Lady Gaga Guerrera. That'd be a good one too, right?
This is our Lady Gaga and Star Wars podcast. Kenneth says, from an artistic standpoint, the Bad Batch is a huge step up from Clone Wars at its height. I'm so glad Disney improved from the cheap Rebels look. Yeah, me too. That's kind of like I'm thankful for Rebels for all of the good things that it did bring and the good stories that it did tell. It did not do any favors to the Star Wars aesthetic, mostly.
I did mention that quote when you were rebooting.
Yeah.
And, my slight take on it was that no doubt they got a budget cut. I'm not going to say.
Filoni basically told me that in person. Like, I don't have the audio of it, but he basically told me that to my face. Yeah.
And their way of dealing with that was to go to again, that's why I had this one up, was like, well, if we go to the Macquarie paintings, we can give a simpler look, you know what I mean? And try to make it look more like that sleeker 70s kind of art thing. Yeah. But it's like people can see through the difference in quality. Because it wasn't just the aesthetic. It was like, the animation, the lighting. There's a lot of things that weren't.
The Chewbacca Wookiees looked like turds. It wasn't a lot work. There was, yeah. I mean, and it's like a lot of times the story is so good, it doesn't matter. It's like a good song. It doesn't matter how it was recorded. It's still a good song kind of thing. And it kind of goes that way for Rebels at times. And then it's only when you have the show, when it's like the story is kind of filler, a filler story with bad animation and the heroes like going, whoa, and tripping. I saw a girl, whoa, and he can't handle himself because of puberty. That you're like, okay, this is kind of insufferable on a weekly watch. When you watch it all at once, that falls away because you kind of just like check your phone and zone out for a few minutes. The episode's done, and then you're on to the good parts again.
So I find that to be a product of two things. One, this is why I know we're doing like a per episode review to talk about because we just watch, we don't talk about it. Yeah. I don't like when people review an episode. Was this a good episode or a bad episode? Because at some point you're going to watch them all without a delay, and the delay sometimes can make you feel like, was it worth the wait? There's not going to be a wait, the next time. So that and they don't write those with thinking, oh, people waited a week, we got to give them something. They don't, because sometimes the order gets screwed up anyway due to production issues and stuff. So unless it's a specific story, like an anime series that's going in order, like a Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, where it depends. The story, you can't do them out of order. So that's different. But two, the sometimes episodes just set up things later, and you can't get to. Like Loki is a good example where, like, in episode 3, people complain it's just they're walking and talking, but everything that happens that episode sets up the next 2 episodes. You have to have things that set up, and they're not always the most elegant episodes, or they're not the most fun to watch. But if you miss out on it, then then you miss out on it. Like you go, what, cut it out. Doesn't always make it better, man.
No, and that's the thing to always remember too, is that, like, truly, when you're reviewing them live, there is that aspect of, was this worth the wait? For sure. Like, that's, and in a live episode like this where it just happened, it's a little bit fair to, like, have that perspective. But in reality, these are going to sit in the Disney Plus Disney Plus archive forever.
Real negative.
As one show, as one,
it's also,
like, long thing, and it's never going to be consumed on a per weekly basis again, unless you're weird or you're a very busy person.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to remember Breaking Bad, it was just like every episode was just picked over with the fine-tooth comb, and now people watch like, oh, this is amazing, but it didn't, like Lost season 2, they dragged it out. But when you watch it all at once, it doesn't feel as bad as it did back in the day.
Yeah, it's like it meanders, but it's like, it's interesting. So you're like, okay, and then it gets rolling in season 3. It's just like, boom.
They live in a cage and eat dog biscuits now. I mean, it's fun. I mean, I would like that is, if I pitched that idea for a show, you'd be like, so we're gonna put 3 people. What's her face, Lily, not Lily Allen, but from from The Hobbit, the elf. We're gonna put her jet. I forget
the wasp.
Right. Yeah. So we're gonna put all 3 of them in a cage and feed them.
Evangeline Lilly.
Angeline Lilly. Thank you.
Is it Evangeline or
Evangeline? Angeline Lilly.
Did you ever see her phone sex style commercial that she did, like in the early 2000s or 90s?
No,
I think it was her. There's this, like, phone, like, call me kind of thing. It's, like, pretty fun. It's like,
hey man, you gotta work, right?
Gotta pay the rent. Kenneth has a theory that the Bad Batch will eventually join the Rebel Alliance, and Echo is somehow associated with the name Echo Base. What do you think? Like that idea? The first part, I've already have that theory. I'm with you. They're going to eventually, I think, link up with Bail Organa and become maybe the early kind of assassins or whatever, if you will, of that. The Echo Base thing, I think you're onto something there. I think that's a hard one to. How did I never think of that? So I like where your brain's at on that. It makes me feel like Echo is going to die for that to happen, because it would be like, can you imagine if, like, you were, like, in a base and like we were, like, me and you are rebels and we're in Kenneth base. Kenneth's gonna just be like, this is my base, man. Give me some pizza rolls.
Unfortunately, we name military bases after certain generals of failed civil wars too. So like, it does happen. So
they should. This is Tarkin base. Why are we calling it that, you guys? I don't know. Or this is Dooku base. He was a separatist.
As a kid, I learned I could lie effectively if I just said anything confidently.
Yeah.
Right. And this is my earliest forays into storytelling. So I would tell people confidently, wampas are what happen when gremlins eat after midnight in the North Pole. What? Yeah. If they eat in the snow, they turn into a wampa. They get the white hair, but they're gremlins, and their ears turn to horns. And I would just tell everyone at school this stupid lie.
That one dude I told you about yesterday, Garwin Keene, my old teacher, who had that, like, amazing life in the THX 1138 connections and stuff. He did a lot of plays. He directed a lot of plays in Long Beach, and, like, small plays and stuff like that. and when they would have like a casting call, when they had too many people, one of the things he would ask people is before he would go on with the interview or take him further, is when you were a kid, could you lie to your parents? And if they said no, then he was like, not interested.
Make it convincing, kid. Not only did I learn I could, what I learned was what was the acceptable punishment, right? Like, is it worth the cost of the punishment?
Yeah.
And so, like, I got caught ditching school once with my buddy, my Star Wars buddy. I had one friend who liked Star Wars in the 80s, right? Because it wasn't popular in the mid 80s. And we did school around 91 in junior high to go play Turtles 2, the arcade game. He had the NES title. And as we're walking to his house, this sheriff drives by, and I just freaked because I'm an idiot. I just jump into a bush, you know? And the sheriff stops his car, comes over, and we're like, oh, they let us out of school early. And he's like, sure he did. So he just said, tell your parents you got to call me. He gave me his business card. And so I was freaked. I had to tell my mom. So I called the sheriff's office pretending to be my mom. Like I left a message and totally thought I had it. I was like, this is Mrs. Mrs. Esterhouse. And and so I leave him a message thinking everything's great. And the next night I'm chilling at home with my mom and we're having a good time. And he calls and goes, I just want to say how proud I am that your son really told you. And she's like, told me what? And it all came crashing down, Jason. Came crashing down.
Yeah. What happened? What was your punishment?
I was grounded that we were supposed to go to. That was the weekend they went up to Palomar Mountain, and I wasn't allowed to do anything. And then she made me sit in the back of the El Camino.
Oh,
that was like part of my punishment. It's funny, I forgot that they were that weekend, but that is that week. That's why one of the reasons she made me sit in the back of the El Camino and freeze my ass off was for this is what happens to liars.
This is what when I was about 4 years old, I was outside playing with Star Wars figures, doing what you do with your Star Wars toys, and I go around the corner and there's like a back alley. Over that alley is a nicer neighborhood than mine. And they had a pool, and there's like a big thing of soap there, of like powdered like all. And I open it up, I just take it, I just toss it into the pool and run.
No.
Just don't know why I did it, just had to do it. And then my mom goes to watch to do laundry, and she's like, "Did you do something with my soap?" And I'm like, "No." She's like, I put it right here. It was right here next to the car, and now it's gone. Like, I don't know.
Oh, no.
She goes upstairs to our apartment, and then she like looks out the window to see like what I'm doing later on, and that's when she sees the soap floating in the neighbor's.
Just like, cross camera.
Yeah, and then so my punishment was I had a Twilight Zone couple of days from my mother where she wouldn't speak to me. That was my punishment was I don't talk to liars, and she just wouldn't talk to me. And I was like, I kind of got used to it pretty quick, to be honest with you, though. It didn't work that well.
Against creatives, it's like, well, I'm in my own head anyway, entertaining myself, so it doesn't really do much. It's like, thank you, I can think now.
Like, He-Man's on at 5, I'll be okay. You should have taken that. But Kenneth says, I never thought I liked the new DuckTales. It has a much more snarky humor that borrows from modern pop culture. Art style similar to the 50s comic book DuckTales series, which is like what you're pointing out. Yeah, and one thing I was going to add really quickly to go, not to go back into the DuckTales stuff too much, but I believe Lucas collected the original art from the comics from the
Carl Barks.
Yeah, all the original Donald Duck cartoon stuff and comic books and stuff like that, and was a big fan of that stuff. When the
cartoon came out, they put out one of those, like, it was like QuickTime 3D, but QuickTime 3D, that's how old I am. But they put out something like a QuickTime 3D where you could kind of look at a DuckTales trailer in VR a little bit, like you could move around, and like it was like not too much, but it was really excellent. Like you tracked them on the Jeep and on the plane and stuff. So
yeah, I'm a big fan. I don't really like using Facebook too much, but I'm a big fan of doing the photos on the newer iPhone, and you can put them into that like 3D kind of thing where you turn the phone. It's really fun. I did like a bunch of Galaxy's Edge photos like that I
Remember they had that. That's why I was bringing up the 3D. It was like QuickTime 3D, QuickTime VR is what they called it. But they had that for like, remember when the Mission Impossible, the first one came out? You could go to the site and it was like QuickTime VR, and it was like it was just they mapped the 3D image to like a box, a skybox or a sphere, and you could like move it around.
Yeah. There was some Star Wars stuff for that too early on. There was a couple of things for Star Wars that used that stuff as well. Mark Hamilton says, "Then my 4-year-old loved the first Deadpool." Your kids are like my kids. You know, with mine, like I have really good kids. Like there hasn't been like a really bad, like nothing really. They haven't done anything like awful yet, and it kind of makes me kind of paranoid. I'm like, am I just not seeing it? Where's it at? You know? But at the same time, like we just like talk about stuff like okay, I'll screen Rick and Morty. I'll watch it for them. If there's nothing, I'll skip something if it's really egregious. And then if it's like an okay general episode, like I'll like let them watch it. And then like my son will laugh like when they call somebody an asshat or something equivalent of that. And then he'll say it and he'll look at me like, oh, I said a bad word. And I'm like, it's okay. But you know, you can't say that, right? You can't call somebody and he's just like, yeah, I know.
Don't take that to school.
Yeah. Like
to your mother's place.
So so it's like, it's cool. And then like, I don't know if I'm, but I think I'm probably getting really lucky because I think my daughter, I think she's going to be a punk. She just has
Sometimes there's that age, man, where they just go, now it's on. You know, I didn't have it. My father got lucky with me in that I'm like the responsible, like I'll just sit in my room and work. But my buddy, my Star Wars buddy, he was that kid. And my dad was like, you're going to turn it. He was like, you know, the Corey Feldman character in Stand By Me. I was like the Will Wheaton, like, I'm not getting in any trouble. I'm doing the Rito. But my friend would just always get into trouble. But he was like, when you only have one, back in the day, you had one person might like the same stuff you like. And no matter what their ethos was in life, that was your friend.
Yeah.
Like, you just stuck with them. Like, they're the only ones that like this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I was that guy. I was the one. I hit like 14. I realized that adults really don't get much smarter than 14. and it was just like disillusionment, reading Catcher in the Rye, punk rock, and it all happened at like one time, and puberty all at the same time. And I was just like, oh no, I'm not listening to anybody. I'm doing my own thing. This is all a scam. And yeah, it was fun times. I got beat up a lot. It got me beat up a lot. Mark Hamilton says, word from Ryloth will spread through the clones comms, and at some point, the Bad Batch or a surviving Jedi Mace will then make an impassioned speech to all the clones to rise up against the Empire. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. That's where I'm hoping this goes. And I'm hoping that it's like the Bad Batch is the spark of rebellion for them, so to speak, and that they end up just completely turning on that system. And why do we end up seeing, you know, Rex and a couple of homies living on a ATTE on a backwater planet, drying their clothes and barbecuing every day? And I'm hoping it's because of something like that. And I'm hoping that that's what brings Rex back in. And then, but at the same time, it's going to be bad for them. I mean, it has to be bad for them. Like, while some do stay on and become teachers, as the book as the book said. What was the book? The first one that what was it called now?
The Chris Wendig one? You're talking about
no, the book before that. It wasn't Aftermath. It was the one with Kanan, like the Kanan book.
Oh yeah, I know. I don't remember the name. I know what you're talking about.
Why am I?
Harloff and them were reviewing it big time at the time.
Yeah, I don't know why. I read it like twice. I don't know why I'm blanking on the title. But anyways, in that one, I think there's like a line that says like clones stayed on to become like teachers of stormtroopers. So you will have some of that. But I think that if they wanted to, they can make it where like the clones that were the teachers with the Kaminoans, those might be the ones who just trained the stormtroopers after, and all of those ones, if they have like a big rebellion, but they're mostly going to die. So that is the flip side, is that because otherwise the Rebel Alliance would have a clone army at its disposal that it's never going to really have. So with that in mind, it's like it has to be a failed insurrection. But at the same time, I'm the kind of guy who'd rather see them go down fighting than go down like, oh, okay, well, we're just retiring now under imperialism. Rick says Indiana Jones and the Lost Atlanteans of the Moon. Yeah, I hope the title doesn't feel super modern, and I think it probably will. Like when you get down to it, like Force Awakens kind of broke convention as a marketing thing for Star Wars. Really moved away from what we were used to in the titles. So this one though is a little bit more tied to it, I think, to that 30s, 40s, but now we're to the 60s thing. So, it's like Indiana Jones and the Easy Riders. Is that what you call it by 69?
Well, I mean, look, they did The Last Crusade, so everyone thought, well, it means it's the last movie. If this really is their thing, it could be like, and I hate to make light of this, I shouldn't even say it, but like Indiana Jones in the final solution, you know what I mean? Like the final, something. I wonder if they'll add like final in it or last or the end of
something to make it like what The Last Crusade was also double alluding to,
because he's gonna fight Nazis. There's no way they go, we got Ford one more time, he's not gonna fight Nazis.
Yeah,
like I just don't see that not being a central part of it somehow. Like him fighting what, NASA bureaucracy. That it's a very George. Actually, the problem is,
will the 60s villains be the Russians again? Because you have like the space race, and you would think that they would bring Russians in. And honestly, with the way that the Russians have behaved in the last couple of years with the United States, they kind of got it coming from our pop culture at the very least, I think. And so it's like, come on, man.
I don't have a problem with, especially they brought Helen Mirren back, in some way or something like it. Like I didn't mind that paranormal, like MJ12 element of the whole. I think she died.
Kate Blanchett.
Kate Blanchett, sorry.
Yeah.
Once they get a wig on, man, I'm just blinded by the awesome hair.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for that swing out sister.
Yeah.
Breakout like hairdo.
No, I mean, honestly, like when I watched that movie, I'm like, why is he getting back with old news over here with the mom? I mean, come on, let the past be the past. Let's show this lady what capitalism can do.
But I don't think they're pulpy, like, unless they've teamed up, the Russians and the Nazis, which I don't see that ever happening because that's, historically, like, it's not the thing they do. They're like, we each have our own Snake Mountain. So, yeah, I mean, I just see them going, he's going to fight Nazis. But I did think, though, if it was a going to the jungle to find hidden Nazis thing, didn't we just do that jungle, the South American jungle thing in the last movie, But people forget, too, so.
People just remember swinging monkeys on that one. And it's like, at the same time, you have, it could just be private interest and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like an antiques collector who wants the part and it has more power to the U.S. government and they need, or something. Like it could go in all these different ways.
Indiana Jones versus the John Birch Society, They're trying to sell people gold. Sorry, I cut you off.
Sorry, no. The RT Times, I believe, was really mad about Indiana Jones 4, though. They were writing stories. How dare they show the Russians in this light? And it's like, oh no, it's pretty on.
Well, I mean, right now that's why they went after us with
the Russians right now are trying to say that the UAPs is their new jet. I'm kind of playing into it by even talking about it.
All right, then wheel it out in broad daylight.
But that's and that's what I think the whole thing is that they know they can't live up to it. They know it's not that, but they just want everybody to know that they have a new jet. I just played into it by even saying, right. but it's like, what a bunch of clowns.
I was gonna go ahead. Sorry.
No. I was gonna move it over to Hamilton, who says he thinks that they're doing a Gremlins reboot. I know someone pitched their take. And then Rick says, I thought Gremlins was going to be a Netflix animated series. And that I heard the first thing and was super excited as well that Mark heard. And then I saw it was just a cartoon.
Yeah, the writer and the guy behind it is very good. They just didn't get a budget. I think it's going to HBO Max. That was part of the HBO Max.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah. I'm excited to see the story. It's a shame. Look, first, it's a shame that we consider cartoons in this country to be secondhand, considering we
Yeah.
invented the whole medium. Like, it's so weird. I mean, I kind of blame Hanna-Barbera for that in the 50s, 60s, just kind of cheapening animation. And the fact that we definitely, as we know in this country, we don't appreciate large groups of labor. You know,
Yeah.
we don't really value that, so we get told it's cheap. But we've waited so long. Puppets, they could do puppets on the cheap too. It's not that big a stretch to do puppets anymore. So
Right. Well, especially with like digital compositing and stuff, like it was probably a lot more expensive to even do that stuff back in the day. The thing about it is when something jumps its medium. If a cartoon becomes live action, it's assumed then that it's getting the AAA treatment. And when something is live action and then jumps to animation, it's assumed that it's going down and being dumbed down for children.
And if
And
you're a fan of Street Fighter, you know that's not the truth.
right. No, sometimes things work better in the medium in which they were just released. I think that Gremlins. I'm curious as to how cute the animated show becomes, but that puppet was so adorable. Sorry, Baby Yoda, but it is your rival, and it's
Now,
like,
sorry.
yeah,
But if the Invader Zim, if Yonan Vasquez, we're doing the Invader Zim treatment to Gremlins, then I
right.
gotta say I'd pay money to go see it in the theater.
Yeah,
You know.
and I definitely think the evil Gremlins could be really hilarious in animation, like when done right and stuff like that. It could be, and I'm curious as to what the tone is going to be. Is it going to be like the original movie, or is it going to be more satire based, like part two? And I think that I honestly love both movies quite a bit. It's just such a random. In a way, it sucks that Gremlins 2 was such satire, because I think it just killed the whole thing from moving forward and being taken serious in any way ever again, and them doing more with it. At the same time, like, it's so much fun, and the first one is such a good film.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the first one, but I appreciate and think the second one is extremely smart for what it's doing.
Yeah,
It's like the Paul Verhoeven of Gremlins.
yeah,
Like, it's not cheap satire. It really is incredibly smart.
yeah. I really liked. What was I going to say? I just read Joel correcting us. It was Crystal Skull's 57. Okay, cool. So we're like more than 10 years out. So that is even a bigger chance of them recasting Mutt if they were so inclined, which I believe that they were. And my computer got just punked out on me for a long time. Yeah, what's up with computers today? Is it Gremlins? I think it's Gremlins. It makes sense. Indiana Jones and the End of Time, says Joel. Nike Hike says, thank you for answering my question, Jason. Can you give us a hint if it's Endor, Boba, or Kenobi related? To be honest with you, I hear things about all of these productions. They're always little tiny things, and it's like it has to collect. And you collect, and you start to hear, and then you start to hear this, Inquisitors, Wookiees, whatever it happens to be, these little things that come in, and then you start to get like a picture painted, and then you're like, okay, and then you hear something that ties it together. And like right now, there's like a bunch of like loose things. It's a bit harder now with Andor, Kenobi, and Boba all kind of having gone up at the same time. Like when somebody's like, "Hey, here's a picture of this service droid that's like an R2 unit with legs or something like that." Well, at one point, I get that. I know it's from Mando. There's no question about it's from Mando. Right now, if I see something or whatever, and it comes from some certain places, I have no idea. And
And they're sharing this similar production design. Unlike, say, like The Last Jedi had a very unique, or even The Force Awakens, like you can tell a sleek trooper, First Order trooper from a, post Revenge of the Sith stormtrooper style era. Like these productions, even though Mando takes place 5 years after Jedi, it all sort of looks the same.
Yeah.
So it's, and not in a bad way, just that it would be hard. Like if you showed me that, like when we looked at the scene from the turrets, right? From Cassian, right? Or from the Cassian series. Yeah, it's Rogue One-ish, but that easily could have been that episode in Mando 2 where they go and remember they all three of them go down with the truck and they with Bill Burr, right? Remember they go and infiltrate.
Bill Maher.
Yeah, he must hate that, right? He gets that.
He's gotta hate that.
Yeah, but when they go in that whole flood scene at the end or whatever, like when they're racing away from that it could be on that planet. It could be like a little Imperial fortress that they're stronghold that they're trying to like infiltrate. So you couldn't really tell where it's from at this point.
I was down at the Kenobi set a few days ago, and I didn't. I forgot to kind of talk about it really, but for what it's worth, I was at the Kenobi set a few days ago. They were making streets that look like Mos Eisley. Now, once again, not saying it's Mos Eisley, but I am saying based off of the architecture and the design, and it being the Kenobi show, and that it starts off on Tatooine, I think it's just fair to say that it's more Tatooine. So here we are now, several months into production, and we are seeing more Tatooine. Like they don't necessarily film the episodes all in order all the time. Like they kind of have done that with because different directors and stuff, and Deborah Chow is making all of it, so maybe they're not, and so maybe this is filming from that all out of order. That said, yeah, it's stuff just like that, a lot like that right now. But what's interesting about this one, or in this way, is, and this is me kind of extrapolating and guessing a little bit, but they're making long like fence. It's almost like a fence, and they're not building the whole thing. And I have a feeling it's going to be for a chase sequence on foot, like
Dash Rendar,
but Dash Rendar,
right?
Yeah, Dash Rendar and 10-year-old Han Solo. But no, but it definitely has that kind of vibe of, because everything that they make on the television shows over here, not so much on Cassian that I've seen, but over here is modular. Like, here you go, like we, they will build like a Tatooine house or a bar, like they will build that. But when you get down to like the street stuff, it's just like high walls that emulate buildings. But these ones aren't as high, which I thought was also interesting. And so I don't know if it's going to be because something small is going to be running through, and it's going to be like a really big tracking shot, but it's a long street, a long Tatooine street. And you know how in Mos Eisley, how like you have like kind of like the sloped buildings, like in the added shot where you see the ASP-7 droid punch the thing, and like they're going into Mos Eisley and say like the long streets in the special edition. It looks like one of those things, but unlike that, this is very continuous. It keeps going. So it's almost like it's either like a fence or a very long building, and they're just going to finish the rest with CGI or something. I don't know. There's no blue screen there yet. So yeah, I saw that though, and I was a bit like, what is this? And then one other theory I had is if you were to put somebody into a speeder, maybe you don't need, and you were to film the speeder from the cockpit of the speeder, or like from like the side of the speeder, maybe you don't need to build everything up as high, on the cheap, because it's only going to sit 3-4 feet above the ground. Just a guess.
I've seen how modular, like when you were first taking photos, remember when like Filoni or Favreau were like waving at you or something?
Yeah.
And I was like, I remember like when that was going down, and I'm looking at that, and then when eventually the first season comes out, and I can see parts of it, but I'm like, how did they, being that they shot a lot of those outdoor things around these little modular sets, how did they fit all that together in post, between that and the stagecraft stuff? Like how, unfortunately the behind the scenes stuff is not that in depth. It's just a lot of them talking about how great Star Wars is. It kind of bummed me out that
we're all family here. Stuff.
Yeah, it's very, and you were great, we're all great. And it's like, all right, show me the guy that had to animate Yoda saying begun the Clone Wars have 1,500 times. Yeah. And the sheer look of stress on his face when he prays this one nuanced version does it. Like, I want to see that. Show me.
Let's get the dudes from India that you farmed most of the visual effects out to.
I have wondered, like the visual effects that get farmed out to countries that have been hit by the pandy pretty bad.
Yeah.
Like that when people go, oh, well, it's affected a lot of production. I'm like, why don't we talk about I mean, the visual effects got shut down so bad that Imagine Effects shut down because there's no ads to take out. You know, I think a lot of people don't understand, like, those magazines survive on ads. They don't survive on subscriptions. They survive. And so when production shut down, yeah, some people could be filming things, but there's no post production to be done. Like, there's no giant houses and not everyone can work at home when they're working on top secret sensitive information. I mean, you remember the story when Favreau was talking about how when he was on the first Iron Man movie, he went to ILM to go, it was that shot where Iron Man's in the air and like they're adding like the condensation on the camera to make it feel like there's a GoPro up there with him. Yeah. And they're working on that shot. And he goes by this desk, and this guy was working on Crystal Skull, and like he had to like grab cardboard and just like cover his computers because it couldn't be seen, you know. And that's at ILM, yeah, and that's at Skywalker Ranch and stuff like that. So it's like, you can't just start working on Mando at home, you know. And those countries, unfortunately, don't have the facilities for them to work at home. They don't have rock solid internet connections, you know. They don't have the best equipment. Everything really is built at these studios that are also protected. I mean, I have a friend who's an artist at DC who drew Batman, Omar Francia, I can say his name, and it was like 5 or 7 years ago. He got robbed at home, like point blank. Guys just broke into his house, and he had told them, I draw Batman. That's why they're looking at all this stuff, and like they didn't like murder him because he drew Batman. Like he was just like, he was really shook up, and I was like talking to him for a couple days over, you know? And so like, you don't understand, like the security that we take for granted, even here in the States, is not the same in other countries, you know?
Right. Yeah. When I went to that screening of Attack of the Clones in 3D in Marin County a couple of years ago, they were just like being like, they weren't thinking of this as a PR thing or anything like that. And it's like, yeah, like we'd send the shots over to India, and you would just get back what you get back. Sometimes it's really good, and sometimes it's really bad, but you know, it's how you save cost. And there's like, I kind of like going like, basically it's not going to happen if we don't do that. But he was like, you could tell there was a little bit of like not really being that jazzed about it being the reality. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so that's why when Cameron spent $20 million on the Terminator 2 3D release, it's because it was done, you know, at studios that aren't doing that. And it costs a lot of money. They have to get some kind of dual release schedule in other countries. In that case, it was China. Same with the 3D release for Titanic. You know, like someone has to foot the bill somewhere. They don't just go, well, we know it'll sell. We'll just pull all the 20 millions out of our coffers and spend money on this. You know, I know people like to think that's the case. It's not the case. And unfortunately, a lot of that stuff was being done. I mean, remember that Wrath of the Titans, the one that came right after Avatar, that was really bad 3D. That was almost like the auto AI deepfake version of 3D that ran out of a studio in India. Like, yeah, and they were blaming it's a studio in India. What no? So I was like, guys, you can't do that. Yeah, like, don't go doing that. You know, yeah,
like, they put a bid on it, and you accepted that price, and you got what you paid for. Probably that's probably exactly what happened.
Just like this green screen effect here. Yeah. I get what I pay for, you know?
Yeah. So, nothing too notable. I didn't see any characters on set that were like notable. Just, they were doing a set build. Spot any Rontos. Yeah. I could see the wireframes walking down the street. Dell says, Jabba's in the router, Gremlin's at the cable box, or Groot trying to communicate through the HoloNet. I'm never sure what's going on with these computers. Yeah. I feel it. Today I'm feeling it, man. Just as it wasn't there a story of sensitive information being stolen off Mando a few years back. What happened was they had left. I don't know if they left it, but a camera was stolen, and in the camera was the hard drive that was filming all of the stuff, and a bunch of the stuff that was on there was stolen. And I'm going to assume that was like automatically backed up. One of the things that they're doing now, and it's more, it's like they're using 5G technology, and what they're doing now, yeah, right.
No,
it magnetized Dave Filoni. His estrogen levels rose. His estrogen levels rose. His testosterone levels are gone, and he is completely on the Kathleen Kennedy train now. No, Civil War is over. Filoni lost.
He's like Peter Parker in Spider-Man 2 on the train, but he's just magnetized. He's stuck to it, from all the 5G.
I heard about like tests that were done, and it was like, I'm not sure if it was actually Jar Jar Binks or if that was just the example that was being given to me, but it was like that they had Jar Jar Binks host the opening of SNL Live. And like that was the test, and that they had an actor go and pretend to be equivalent, either Jar Jar or equivalent of Jar Jar, and they were able to bounce it to the satellite, render it with the 5G, send it out to the live audience who was watching it as Jar Jar in real time.
Like the Henson CGI puppet from Muppets Tonight, or not Muppets Tonight, the one from the early 90s. Remember, it was like a floating googly-eyed thing?
Yeah.
And they could actually do it in real time, but it was just, it was very early Pixar-ish looking,
Yeah.
Like it didn't actually connect.
Yeah. But this was like photorealistic, Phantom Menace quality Jar Jar Binks kind of stuff that they could do in real time. And so I think the volume is using that stuff to some extent. They're not really talking about that yet. But
that's Unreal 5, the volume, right? Like Stagecraft. So have you watched any of the technical demos on Unreal 5?
I don't think so.
You should, because Epic is all the tech that's behind the Stagecraft. So when Unreal 5, it uses a different form of rendering that allows them, they keep talking, we can use movie quality assets. So things with billions and trillions of polygons can be rendered in real time, but it's not actually rendering that. It uses screen space rendering. And yes. I'm like, this is Mando tech. And you can see the backgrounds are all Tatooine-ish. I'm like, yeah, this is Mando. Like Epic and Lucasfilm right now got this I wouldn't be surprised if Epic got bought out by Disney at some point or something like that. Or there was a merger of the way they're doing the tech.
Epic Games is making, I heard about this project. It's like $1 billion project, and it's basically Ready Player One. It's like taking all of the licensing that they've kind of acquired over the years and those deals, and they're making a VR world using all of that stuff. So chances are, if in Star Wars is included, and I think Matrix is included, and yeah, basically all of the Sony stuff, and like all of those studios gave Epic like I think it was Sony, I could be wrong about that, but gave them like $250 million. And it's like $1 billion thing in the end, where all of these studios have thrown in their cash and they're making this VR, essentially the Oasis in VR.
That could be that Mario 3 game we talked about, like when VR finally gets its big push, like the thing you got to play. Because it reminds me of when Lucas was talking about how much money that companies threw at him to help develop the digital cameras for Attack of the Clones.
Mm-hmm.
To an extent, that one shot they did on the Phantom Menace. But he's like, we spent like $100 million, and different companies just teamed up with us, and we got 40 from Sony and 20 from this, the Panavision or whatever. And so it sounds a lot like that, just with games.
And really quickly, there were two shots that were digital in Phantom Menace. It's when Anakin is getting his blood taken on Mos Espa at night, and then the other one is in the Jedi Council chamber at night. And if you notice it when you watch it on the 2011 Blu-rays, for sure, Qui-Gon Jinn looks very waxy. The digital noise reduction was so overused, or had to be so overused in the compensation, that it made everybody look kind of waxy in those shots. But
that Predator. Remember the Predator re-release where everyone was super smoothed out?
Yeah. He looked like he was like chocolate or something. They actually ended up issuing a new disc if you wanted it, and because it was so bad. But anyways, to go back to the or one thing about the Mando volume stuff, I don't know if anything's changed, but about during the height of the pandemic, I'd say, I was talking to a friend who works on a source who works on the shows, and oops, sorry, I can't change my volume right now. So if I get a text, I get a text. They can't really do a lot of fast movement in the volume. When there's too much motion going on at once, it leads to all kinds of weird problems. So you have like when they use the volume, it has to be like pretty chill stuff, crouching in corners, a campfire. You know what I mean? Like everything is very much like in the speed of a Western. It works there. And so I think that's why we're not seeing the volume used as much on something like Cassian. Dude, your arm is disappearing, Marty.
It's the feed's getting tough, you know.
But yeah. Okay, well, we are hitting the end of the show now. I think we're hitting like the 2-hour mark, and the chat is slowing down a bit. So I think we'll call this one a day, or call this a show. Sorry about the technical difficulties that happen. That's the thing with the live show, and the thing with doing these every day is shit's gonna happen, I guess. Tomorrow night, I am at 8 p.m. I am with Jason, and you're welcome to come if you're free, Rob. If you're never being free, feel free to jump on if you feel like it.
Okay.
Yeah, but we're going to be talking about UFOs, and we're having a guest on who's going to show some of a UFO photo or two that he captured, and we're going to talk to him, and we're just going to have a UFO discussion because it's fun, and that's going to be tomorrow Saturday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and hopefully I will have my setup here working right by then. And oh shit, he's at Area 51 now.
Yeah, I know, right?
He's already there.
I actually went, pussies. You all chickened out, but I did it.
You're the one guy who did the Naruto run in there.
Poor Bob was out there going, "Don't do that. Like, do not. That is monumentally insane." Like,
but yeah. So that's me tomorrow. Thanks to everybody who supports the show, who stood around and waited for the thing, and thank you for taking over, Rob, and doing an excellent job with that. It's appreciated.
Yeah, no problem, man. I mean, like I said, I'll just have a couple backup topics just in case. Like,
yeah.
Whatever happens and we're on to something, I'm like, look, man, guys, I'm new to this cartoon, so you can be mad at me. You know? What do you want me to do? You know?
Yeah.
But it was super fun.
Yeah, no, it was a good time. And we will be back Monday with your regular Indiana Jones and Star Wars stuff. And honestly, if something big hits and I am kidless by some chance and I can do it, I'll jump on. I'll give you a DM and say, hey, if you're free, come on. But if something big news breaks, I'll try to get on and like handle it if it's the weekend and I am free. But yeah, thanks to everybody for all of the support and for hanging out with us. It's always good to hang out with Star Wars buds. Always good to have the questions and to make me think about Echo Base being a callback to Echo. Genius.
Love right? You. That's why I was like, oh my God. Like my head, I didn't really think about that. It was a good one.
It's a good one. So everyone, I am going to do the honor of playing this video clip and saying goodbye.
It's not about spaceships. It's not about spaceships.